Welcome, Ali and Steve. Welcome to the Launching IoT interviews. Why don't we start with you both introducing yourself. Ali, if you could go first, and just say a little bit about your name, the role that you have, and kind of a little bit about your background.
Okay, I'm Ali Miller. I'm co-founder, investor in the company, my background is I did electronic engineering at UCL, and then throughout my career moved into the business side. Got involved in IoT many years ago now, primarily through our son, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. And my role within the company is manyfold, but I focus a lot on the technology, driving the product forward in terms of our own design and development of our own products and how we use others.
Hi, so I'm Steve Miller. I'm the founder of KoolZone, and by trade, or by qualification, I should say, a mechanical engineer. But like Ali, after doing a lot of the engineering technical side, I found my role in life was better suited to the commercial side. So I've been involved with many tech companies over the last 30 years or so, including companies like Oracle, Siebel Systems, Macromedia that became Adobe, Nuance Communications, which is all about speech recognition, and a variety of others. In some cases, it's quite specialist technology. In other cases, it's more of a horizontal offering. But so I've spent my time both in the sort of sales and commercial world, but also in executive roles for a number of companies, including about 5 American companies. So, and in founding, KoolZone, this is a venture that we came up with 5 years ago or so, partly, as Ali said, off the back of our son, who happens to be a type 1 diabetic, and was our first experience of trying to find connectivity to the internet in order in that case, to try and get information about his blood sugar levels. And we achieved this first about 10 years ago. Using quite specialist technology, which Ali became an expert in, and Ali ended up as a chief advisor to this American company. But off the back of that, we learned lots about IoT, where Internet of Things became Internet of our Son. So it's connectivity, reporting, communications, etc. And that was the founding, and both conceptually and of our learning, of KoolZone.
Great, thank you so much. And Ali, why don't you just introduce KoolZone and what it's all about?
Well, KoolZone started off very much to try to track the safe storage of insulin within fridges. That's how it started off. So it's very much a temperature monitoring system, and it was designed to be completely intuitive, out the box. And that's where we started. And we won some very large deals, Lufthansa being one of them, which pushed our technology to the limit. And that's where we got involved with looking at LoRa in order to change our whole basis of our technology into something that would allow us to expand. And we expanded not only in terms of the number of deployments in a site. We were highly dense very early on. We were unusual in the density of the deployment of LoRa devices that we would put into an organization. But we've also expanded in terms of the functionality of the product at a broad level, allowing us to encompass any device into our system and to display an alarm on any parameter and to report in a customizable way. So it's grown in all respects, really, horizontally, vertically, and now we have an all-encompassing IoT product.
Yeah, and I think I really like how you describe it as a kind of monitoring as a service. I think that captures a lot of the direction of where the industry is going, and you're already doing it, which is nice to see.
Yes, yes. And we're doing it and I should say we've been doing it in many countries as well, and that's been an additional challenge in terms of broadening out to be able to comply with all the requirements within the radio requirements within other countries. And I'm sure we'll go on to talk about some of the stuff we've done in terms of building our own sensors to that are absolutely optimized for our environment and have overcome all problems that we found out there in the many options that we looked to use in the past unsuccessfully.
Okay, well, if we take a bit of a step back then, and from your own personal experience, and look a little bit more about then your opinion from that perspective of the industry. Steve, why don't you tell us, what does IoT mean to you?
So we talk about connecting environments and connecting devices or equipment. And where we started, and if you take the concept of a fridge, of course, when we were monitoring the temperature of a storage space, we weren't really monitoring the fridge. We were monitoring the area inside of the fridge. So it's actually the cold environment that we're monitoring. But if you continue that journey, you do want to know about the temperature inside, and you might want to know about the humidity, but then you need to know if there's an anomaly, what's the cause? And the cause could be that the door's left open, or the defrost cycle's not working, or the motor is starting to fall apart, or the defrost cycles and such. So then becomes many causes of problems. And IoT for me is all about, in first case, get the data that you want, and then look at the contributing factors that help you understand why is the data like it is. So then you can actually get the the particular parameter that you're trying to monitor, temperature, humidity, vibration, or whatever. But then you can start to look at preventative maintenance and predictive modeling as well. Now, if you can put those two together, then you've got a significantly greater value add. So this is what we're trying to do. So I would say IoT to us is about the generating data that can be accessed remotely, that you can action, you can set alert parameters, you can communicate in amongst the team if you've got critical storage of stuff like, some of the retinopathy drugs. They're tiny little vials like that cost 10,000 euros each, and you might have 100 in a fridge. So you've got €1 million worth of content. So yes, you absolutely want to know if there's a problem in the middle of the night. And if the first recipient of the alert doesn't respond, it's got to go to another one and then another one until somebody does something about it. But you want to look at the root cause, and you want to start to eliminate these things before there becomes a problem. So IoT to us has spanned initially from just getting data from devices or areas, or in the case of our son, from people who weren't actually designed to be connected to the internet, but now they are. So that connectivity gives us data, and then information, then actionable information, and then we can start to look at cost to serve, uptime, and the quality of whatever it is you're trying to do with a machine or device or an area or whatever.
Can I just add something? So just my input on IoT, it's about obviously extracting information from your world that's important to you, that makes a difference, whether that is to protect product, protect machinery, comply with legislation, remove stress through not being aware, remove labor costs. All these things are important to people, but and people know would acknowledge that. They'd go, oh yes, that's important. But then if you say, well, it's this difficult to put in, as in quite difficult to put in to your organization, and it's quite difficult to understand, and it's got quite a high price tag, then the whole benefit of IoT kind of fizzles out because people don't want to do it. So you have to kind of get in as a Trojan horse into an environment with a kind of no-brainer that tackles not too big an area, but something that gives them the biggest win. And then they kind of relax and go, oh, can I do this? And can I do that? So to us, what we're trying to do is be that system that can get in to an organization with little disruption and little cost, but really laser focused added value. And then we can open up from there.
Nice, thank you. Great. Okay, so then if we then take another kind of step back and go total helicopter view on kind of the IoT ecosystem. So Ali, you already talked about the fact that you played with different platforms and then you chose LoRa. You've also talked or touched on compliance. You know, was it something like 17 countries you said that KoolZone's in, each of which have got their own regulatory. You also play a lot with, like, you're in the medical space, laboratories, high value items. And just talk about the ecosystem that's supporting you at the moment, or the things that you're reliant on, or key relationships that you need in order to deliver success.
Do you want me to take that, or? I can take. I'll start. Then you can add. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, and correct me if I'm off on a tangent, we need. If you take what's important in all this to work, you need a sensor that won't fail. Will survive the toughness of the environment, whether that's an extreme temperature, or whether that's rough handling, or whether that's water. Whatever, it needs to dirt, it needs to survive that, and then it needs to be able to transmit over large distances, hence LoRa. So we're very dependent upon LoRa, but what we have done is we have, with our own sensor, we've got two flavors of the stack. We've got the LoRa stack, and we've got our own enhanced LoRa specific for our environment, which overcomes a lot of the issues that we found in things like when you get a network storm. If you have a gateways go out with high density LoRa, then you end up, in the early days, we were finding we were taking out the radio module in the gateway because there was just so much traffic. Everything would spread factor 12, and the whole thing would just be a nightmare. So we're reliant on LoRa, but we've done our own enhancements, and we can flick between the two, whichever people want. We then, of course, need a method of getting that up into the internet. And we've done an awful lot of work on with different gateways, looking at which ones can recover, which ones can. We don't obviously put much traffic through a cellular connection often. It's very small data, and cellular towers are often chucking people off when they think that it's a stale socket, and they're just chucking them off. So there's an awful lot we've had to do to provide absolute resilience in our communication through cellular. And of course, we've got LAN as the option, and we can flick between the two. So we've done a lot of additional work on the firmware of gateways to provide what we need. And we're obviously very dependent upon our gateways that we use. We're constantly looking at other options. One of the things now is to almost go back to where we came from, which is driving down the cost to rely more on Wi-Fi, which we started in the beginning, for those customers that maybe have, 500 outlets, but only say 3 sensors at one site. So we've been looking at the TTN gateway quite seriously as a method of driving costs down. So obviously sensors, gateways, communication channels, all really, really important. We use TTI. We've got our own private instance of TTI. Yeah, we have and our platform. So our platform, we use MongoDB Atlas, and we're dependent upon other third-party companies to provide us some of the facilities we need to run our platform.
Great, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, and I think it shows the complexity that's needed, and the depth of thought, and also the depth of learning that you go through in those early years. Each one of those problems that need to be solved.
You're telling me. It's huge.
And failure modes that all need a technical solution.
Yeah, plug and play. It wasn't. Not in the beginning.
That's aspiration.
Yeah. But even on the platform side, you've done your basic application, which everybody thinks, well, okay, I built my app or whatever. But then you've got to look at an SMS service, an email service, an automated phone call service. You'll need to build APIs because somebody will want a different front end or data extracted into some management information platform. And then because we're very often, because we're in the area where the data we're collecting is actually for critical data needs, which is under regulation, then you have to be robust, and you've got to have resilience in the data. So you then need backup services and so on. And then with the number of sensors we've got, you've then got to do all the device and the network administration. So we have another system. Actually, it's related, of course, but it's the bit below the water level, which is significant. And that helps us manage all the deployed assets that we've got in the field. So even on the software side, there are many, many constituent elements. And I actually drew out all the constituent elements and all the different technologies that we are involved with. And I'm guessing it's on a chart somewhere, but it was 25 or 30 bits of the jigsaw. So although we own critical elements like the sensor and the platform, the systems integration and bringing all these multiple factors together. I mean, if you consider something like a car's got the engine, it's got the exhaust, it's got the steering wheel, it's got the tires, it's got the wheels, it's got the brake pads, it's got glass, it's got sunroofs, it's got seats, it's got leather, and so on. Our world is like that. And if you are to be an effective, real-time monitoring system for these critical points, you can't avoid it. It's the only way you are able to deliver a complete solution.
Yeah, you can't drive a car if it's got 3 wheels and no seats.
Exactly.
You can drive cars with 3 wheels,
engine
rather reliant.
Yeah.
Can I add to that? Our network, our control system is absolutely crucial. And we had someone come in wanting to help with IoT, and they were just trying to use sort of the TTI platform and device HQ and trying to manually enter all these things. I mean, we long ago realized we had to get onto a really robust provisioning and control system. So our system allows us to do everything we want: provision and deploy and diagnose and support, and over the air or over the air stuff's automated. And I mean, there's so much that it does, and we're continuing to build on it. We're just in the process of a next phase of probably about another 6 or 7 weeks, maybe a little bit more than that, on adding to this system, because it's crucial. You can't survive without a really good system under the bonnet that is helping you with this whole process.
And I think with that development, what we're conscious of is there are multiple layers to this stack, and some people want the whole thing. They want monitoring as a service, and other people say, can I buy a sensor, or can I buy a sensor with comms to the data communication to the gateway and some sort of network queuing, and then could you squirt it into my system? But with regards the device administration, network administration platform that we're building, we're also attempting to build that so it can run in isolation, so it can run with other people's IoT offerings, because it's a common area that people don't address. You get to 1,000 sensors and you're stuck. You have lost control of what's going on. So we've tried to make although predominantly what we're trying to do is build a coherent stack, what we're trying to make sure is that we can modularize some of these elements so that they can be saleable assets for us as well.
Yeah, and I think the other thing which you've touched on, but not like you've obviously got such deep technical knowledge. But if you kind of go back to where KoolZone started, it was also about providing something that was really easy and intuitive for your customers to use. And when you're approaching or speaking with new customers who maybe aren't using IoT at the moment and want to begin to digitize, who want to use this data for the first time, what's your advice to them when they are thinking about starting those IoT projects internally within their organizations to help them kind of get started? What kind of things should they be considering?
I mean, inevitably, people are very good at writing functional specifications for things. I want it to do that. I want it to connect this, etc. What they're less good at is saying how to describe ease of use, so the user interface, which is critical. How do you define? I mean, people assume You know, when you've bought things off of Apple or you've downloaded apps or whatever, and some of the games that people buy, the amount of R&D that's gone into these is massive, 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 massive. They're fully QA tested, and there's potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds put into the QA side of some of these things. In our little world of IoT, a developing environment, so some of the quality testing, the extent to which the quality testing is done is nowhere near as significant. So I think the other thing you've got to do is to say, what is the acceptable resilience of your system? How much uptime do you want? If you were taking sample readings every 10 minutes, how many is it okay not to have? So we're targeting having 144 readings every day. But to build mission criticality with that objective is hard. So, you know, if you're looking at the, I don't know, the water content in soil, for example, part of your background, it doesn't matter if you miss a reading and you're taking them every hour. And actually, the next day's reading's fine. But if you're looking at the temperature of pharmaceutical products that are critical and very, very susceptible to temperature, or food, or your son's blood sugar levels, you need data. And you can't say, I'll tell you what, I'll have a few hours off. You can't do that. So the resilience is key. There's always an assumption by many people who are starting these projects that if you build a piece of software that serves 10 sensors or 10 people, then it'll work for 100 or 1,000. And it doesn't. It doesn't scale. So these are the sorts of things you need to think about and try to open your mind to say, in my big picture world, what does it look like? We deliberately started with dual nationality. So we started as an Anglo-German operation. So right from the outset, we built in multi-language, as well as, you know, the multi-sensor and multi-geography, etc., into the business. So we started with that. We didn't have to add it. That's how we started. And so that alleviated, you know, re-engineering a lot of the software elements to it by ensuring it was in at the first place. So those are the things. Try and think of the big, big, big picture. And then when you do your engineering design, don't be myopic and design the first little thing you're going to release. Think about that total picture.
Yeah.
Can I just add then, I think I said earlier that, you know, that to people like the idea of IoT, but really when you start to ask them, they crumble a bit, you know, in terms of what their strategy is to implement it. And so, you know, whilst we're not interested in selling, our business is not about selling 1s and 2s and 3s of sensors. What we did develop was a take it away box, take IoT away box, which allows us to put in there a sort of sample of a few sensors to say, don't think about it too much, get started. And so a great example of that is one of our large biomedical companies, global biomedical companies that we started off in New York, never met them. And they have tried to connect their fridges up in the past with wires and all kinds of things. Literally, when I've been to the site, they literally have, across the whole of this very large laboratory, wires running from every fridge back to the central server.
Not ours.
Not ours.
In a previous life.
In a previous life. And it didn't work, you know, it just didn't work. And so, you know, you're saying, but they start asking questions like, but what do we need to do here? And what do we need to do there? And you go, but you don't need anything. You just need a plug. You know, you just need a plug and put it in the fridge, you know, if you're doing temperature. And so we sent them, well, they bought a gateway, and they bought a liquid nitrogen sensor. They bought a ultra low temperature -80 sensor, and one for a fridge and a freezer. And we sent it out. It cleared customs by the next morning because it goes to New York overnight. And by about 2 hours in, he'd unpacked the parcel and he was all using the system as happy as Larry, you know. And that's the thing that, and from that, we've grown into hundreds of sensors at their organization. He's rolled us out into various countries and many states in the US. And that's just from that Trojan horse of saying, don't overthink it, put it in and see whether you're getting value. Put it in into the area of most pain, see whether you're getting value. And then they go, oh, this is easy. And all of a sudden, this whole trying to understand IoT in order to take a step forward disappears, because there's no thinking to be done. We build in all the resilience. We do all the thinking. You just plug it in. That's it.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, I'll wrap it up but this has been so brilliant. Thank you. So kind of one final question, just a short answer for both of you, of what you would say success is for you. For
us or for our customers?
Well,
I suppose they're both the same, really, to be fair. They're both the same. Well, I think I think we wrote it in that little, when you asked for that little form to be filled in initially as an introduction. I mean, I'll say for me, you say for you. For me, success is about seeing the customers love what you do, and that's great. It lifts you no end when people go, we have people say, this system's just brilliant, why aren't you making more noise? It's absolutely brilliant. We've tried umpteen things and it's never been easy, and this works as you say it works, and you're right, we don't need a manual, and you're right, we don't need this, and this has already saved us, you know, hundreds of £1,000s worth of produce, or, you know, stop this happening and stop that happening. So that's really nice. And then it's really of course we want to build a successful, profitable business and continue to do that. That's key. You know, it's about building profit, because if you build profit, then you can sustain things, you can continue to do more, and it's about enjoying it and having our employees enjoy what they're doing and find that rewarding. And if all those things come together, and this pandemic stops as well, then you know, all's good, because I think we've got all the ticks in the right boxes, and all we're trying to do is to just enhance everything going forward.
Yeah, I think, you know, success is, there's the easy concept, which is out of the box, and we aspire to that, but that's because we've been through so many cycles of back in the box, because we took a unit out the box and it didn't work well enough. Some cases it didn't work at all. So, you know, we've been on the bleeding edge, definitely, of many pieces of technology, software, hardware, firmware, sensors, gateways, and all these things, which have sort of worked, but not completely worked. And we've had to refine them or work with the suppliers. And what we're trying to do is eliminate all of that. And with that, we build our monitoring capability. And it is a horizontal monitoring capability. We don't mind if we're monitoring a machine for vibration to predict when it's going to break, or a temperature, or humidity, or energy use, or whatever, or putting those all together. So I guess we want to be a monitoring company. We want to be agnostic to what we're doing. We want to be able to operate in every continent. And for people to say, yeah, this is a good experience.
Can I also say one other thing? The car analogy that's been talked about, you know, you can have a great car, but you've got to put petrol in it. And of course, battery technology is so fundamentally crucial. And I can remember being at a digital catapult, speaking at a digital catapult thing in London, it was 2 years ago or more. And one of the people stood up and said about their product having 10-year battery life. And then when they put it out in the field, they realized it didn't have anything like that, nothing like that. And so one of the things we've really focused on with our product is absolutely nailing the battery life, because we've seen all the problems. And we've just been doing some tests where we've running various tests where we've been running a 3-second transmission, and we've been getting 22 years. 22 years battery life. That's, so if you take the work we've done, the simulation work we've done with the 3-second transmission, and then you factor off a little bit, because of course it's not quite the same as transmitting every 10 minutes, because you've got some sleep time in the middle. Yeah, it's 20-something years. And so that's critical. You know, you deploy thousands of sensors, and then you've got to go and find them, put the battery in. You don't want to do that regularly.
So, you know, all of these things are, well, you know, what we aspire to. And, you know, even since we spoke yesterday, there was another couple of calls with, you know, prospects or customers, and they came up with some great ideas, and there was some new stuff, and we just want to be able to continue to service that, because we can make the system even better than it is with some new facilities in there. So we want to keep building the platform to be more and more complete, absolutely out of the box. And, you know, there's very rewarding times, like the hospital that looked after our son is now the hospital that we look after.
Quite passionate about it, as you can see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I think
it has a lot of meaning to us, this project, and yeah, so yeah, we want to give back. We love the fact that we are helping those people that helped us with our son in the tricky days, because he was in a terrible state at the beginning. And so yeah, it's quite emotional but we're very passionate about this business, as you can tell.
oh, thank you so much both. I'm going to stop the recording there.